Welcome to this evening's episode of Beyond Focus TV. I'm your host, Lydia Patel, and my special guest for the evening is Rubain Dorancy. He's running for the New York State candidate's 20th district. He's in the hot seat with me for the next 30 minutes, so let's keep it right here. You're watching Beyond Focus TV. Beyond Focus TV allows you to discuss contemporary topics affecting the Caribbean people on both a national and local level. The show features informed guests who offer insight, debate, and evaluate various issues. Beyond Focus TV builds on the station's mission to provide useful information to the Caribbean people in New York and abroad. Beyond Focus TV, where our viewing audience can get educated, informed, and empowered. Welcome back. You're watching Beyond Focus TV. I'm Lydia Patel, and like I said, I have a very special guest. He's no stranger to Beyond Focus TV. Rubain Dorancy is with me for the next 30 minutes, and I know you all are absolutely going to enjoy it. Rubain, welcome back to Beyond Focus.
Thank you so much. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, all that good stuff. I know we had you on right before the year was out officially, but a lot of good stuff is happening. You officially announced that you are running for the New York Senate's 20th district.
Yes.
That's a big thing.
Absolutely.
And it's a great thing. So that's what we're here to talk about. We want to really get into that.
Great. I'm here.
Well, before we even get to why we're here, which we know, we want to promote, everybody coming out, of course, and supporting you. But let everybody know how you got to where you are in this particular point, 2014. A lot has happened. You have a really strong history, excellent background.
Thank you.
Give us a little bit of info.
Born and raised in Crown Heights, Bronzeville, Brooklyn. Was educated actually right across the street from where I grew up. I went to PS 91 for elementary school, Mahalia Jackson for junior high school. Went to Brooklyn Tech High School. Had the opportunity to go to really good public schools in New York City. I'm a product of the public school system, and as a consequence, I feel obligated to serve not just the school system, but on a larger scale, give back to the city that welcomed me and my family, and has given me a lot for me and my family and my children as well. So my decision to run is really more a culmination of the professional career that I've had for almost 20 years. I've had the privilege of, after leaving college, to serve as a teacher for 2 years. Then I was elected to the community school board again in the same district that nurtured me, that educated me, Community School District 17. Had the privilege of also serving in a nonprofit organization, again in Crown Heights, Prospect Heights, working with youth. Served as a mentor. Also worked with low-income residents and established programs around job readiness, etc.
So a really strong background. What would you say to those who still have negative things to say about the public school system and coming out of public school? And of course, times have changed, everything's different, but you legitimately went to public school from start to finish and is doing excellent.
Right.
What do you have to say about that?
I think that first of all, public education should be a right that every child is entitled to. I think that's one of the most important services that the government can extend to the citizens, to its populations. But the public school system alone cannot educate children. And I think it's very important for us to look at public schools as a component of a community. And communities have to be committed to educating their young in order to prepare them to become tax-paying, productive citizens. So while we still have public schools that are not yet meeting the needs of all of the students, what we want to do is continue to believe in the tradition of the public schools and think about the ways to reform it and to build a system that is welcoming of parents, that creates a partnership with parents. By extension, that means also working to expose parents, educate parents, and hold parents accountable to being partners with the public school system to meet the needs of their children.
What do you think is the major downfall that's keeping public schools from really progressing at a faster rate?
I think that public schools right now are asked to do more than what it's been designed to do.
It's an interesting way to look at it.
Yeah, I think historically, I mean, communities have always looked upon schools as a great refuge in terms of really preparing children, providing character education, but it was always supplementary. But over the last several decades, with issues in society at large and with the burdens on parents to sometimes work many longer hours, and the advent of all types of other social ills, a lot of these issues have now impacted the children, and children come to schools with a lot of unresolved needs that have to be addressed. And unfortunately, schools are now stretched beyond their capacity. So that's one of the opportunities then for elected officials and for legislators especially to think about how do we recreate schools so that they can really be truly well equipped, appropriately resourced, to meet the needs of the young people that come through their doors.
So let me ask you, what would you consider your educational philosophy?
I would say, just sort of like where I started, that it's a right that every child should enjoy. It's a service that I think that's probably among the most critical things that the government can extend. I think that we still have among the best public school systems in the world. But I know that in order for us to have a well-functioning public school system, we need schools that are committed to equality. We need schools that are committed to equity. We need schools that are committed to educating the whole child. And that also means recognizing that the children come to school with a lot of knowledge already, and what we want to do is cultivate and build on the things that children do well. It also means that the public school system should be committed to the profession of teaching. That means that we should have a school system that respects educators. I think just like any other profession, you typically want people who have deep experience, making policy, making decisions that impact the professionals within the field. And I don't think that the public school system should be any different. Certainly as a lawyer, I would probably want lawyers and judges and folks who have a legal background making policy decisions about the Bar Association. And I would imagine teachers should be entitled to the same level of professionalism and expertise. So we want a school system that respects teachers, that respects the dignity of the profession. Mm-hmm. We want people who are school leaders who come from a background of education, because principals and assistant principals can therefore model and help develop teachers. But ultimately, I think it's really about creating a school system that is rooted in social justice and equity, equality for all of its students, regardless of where they come from and what zip codes they live in.
That is great. Ruben, hold that thought. We'll be right back. You're watching Beyond Focus TV. We still have a lot more coming up, so keep it right here. Welcome back. You're watching Beyond Focus TV. I'm Lydia Patel, and I've got Rubain Dorancy with me. We still got a lot of information, and I want to cover this because you are running. We got a great background. You brought us up to speed about your educational system, being a product of the public school system, and then working in it, and you actually want to make a difference with that. Coming into this race, first of all, let everybody know officially what you're running for.
I'm running for the New York State Senate, the 20th District. It's currently a vacant seat, formerly held by our now Borough President, Eric Adams.
So that's a pretty nice seat. He kind of freed it up for you.
Right. Well, I don't know about that, but certainly I'm glad that he was promoted, quote unquote, to the Borough Presidency. It's a beautiful district. It's an extremely diverse district. It's a district that runs from Brownsville through Crown Heights, Prospect Heights, and a little bit of Park Slope, and ultimately ends in Sunset Park. So ethnically it's diverse, economically it's diverse, geographically it's diverse. But I know that there are some common threads that connect and bind the entire district. Everyone wants good schools, everyone wants a good paying job, everyone wants to be able to afford health care, be able to afford housing, and I think everyone wants to be, I know everyone wants to be treated with equality, regardless of what they look like, whom they love, how they identify themselves, and where they live. So
and that's very true, and those are some you would consider those basic fundamentals, but at the end of the day, sometimes that could be so far from reality.
Absolutely.
But what can you really say elected officials' role would be in promoting education?
Oh man, I think elected officials are critical and influential in it. A state senator, for example, is part of the legislative process, so they make policy. They pass a budget. They work with the governor to pass a budget. They serve on committees to oversee the education policies of the state, in addition to sort of the constituency services that they deliver at home in their home districts. So elected officials that are committed, again, to seeing their communities thrive, their communities flourish, would want to be very thoughtful and very intentional about, one, getting budgets that would increase the number of after-school programs that our young people get to participate in. We would want our elected officials to be committed to a universal pre-K program. Fortunately, now in the city, Mayor de Blasio has committed to developing a robust, but it requires state legislatures' support, right?
Yes, it does.
You would want a state legislature and elected officials in general to have, especially again when you think about some of the communities and the burdens and the health issues and some of the violence, things that are impacting the young people in the community, and they bring these things to school, you would want to have much more comprehensive schools and community schools. So a lot of the not just the social needs, but also things like medical and dental, a lot of those services could also be offered on site. So now you really help to address a lot of the issues that serve as barriers to student success and student achievement. You would want a state senator to be committed to closing the achievement gap. In almost any city or school district in the state, right? So I'm going to obviously talk about just Brooklyn, but if you go to anywhere in the state, Black and Latino students, especially young men, are typically doing worse compared to their white and Asian counterparts.
Yes.
So you really do want a statewide commitment. I know that President Obama talked about that in his State of the Union address. So it's a nationwide issue, but as a local state senator, you want to have elected officials that are aware of that and too committed to creating the types of comprehensive programs that will help to narrow, if not eliminate, ideally eliminate the achievement gap, and at the same time not ignore our young women. We still have young women of color that are lagging behind, that are, we have the scourge of sexually transmitted infection, teenage pregnancy, and a lot of the barriers consign certain children or almost guarantee that they're going to be trapped in a cycle of poverty. So while I've been extensively involved in young men's initiatives and thinking about ways to close the achievement gap for our young boys of color, young men of color, we certainly don't want to create policies that would hobble or handicap our young women as well.
And that's very, very good. So you're definitely looking at really promoting that and moving that forward. And I can tell that that's one of your top mandates because you speak so passionately about it and spending 20 plus years in the educational system. Of course, you're coming with a wealth of knowledge and experience with that. What else are some of your policies that you would like to bring forth should you become the 20th District State Senate?
I think education for me is vital, but I think when you look at poverty and you look at the factors that contribute to poverty, unemployment, underemployment, the lack of opportunities for minority vendors especially, I think those factors go hand in hand. When you think about just the amount of creativity that exists in our community, we want to ignite and support almost like the flame of entrepreneurialism that exists. But then you don't want folks just creating jobs or creating businesses rather. You want them to also have successful, thriving businesses in order to guarantee sustainable long-term employment. That's the best way that's really the only way to impact poverty.
It's true.
You need jobs. And then with that comes some of the other social benefits. With employment, you reduce the likelihood of crime. So now you're impacting the quality of life in the communities. With a job, you're more likely to have quality health care. So that means now you are able to expose community members and constituents to earlier access to health care. With that, you can help to extend folks' lives. So those two pieces for me are absolutely vital. And there are other principles on which I think government should be built. Like I said before, fairness, justice, equality. But the substantive services that I think are vital, education and jobs, and affordable housing.
I think with those two, you definitely got a very, very long way with that. I'm looking forward to it. Stay right here. You're watching Beyond Focus TV. I'm Lydia Patel, and we'll be right back with Rubain Dorancy.
And to Hoppa Pack, yes, I have a special place in my heart for Hoppa Pack. Hello. They hoppa too early on. And when it was not easy, there's some very good mathematical predictors at Hoppa Pack, and they saw what the rest of the world couldn't see. And really appreciate their early and passionate support. I look forward to a long and special relationship. Rubain is someone who has an extraordinary future ahead. That future may be starting real soon. So we look forward to that.
Welcome back. You're watching Beyond Focus TV. I'm Lydia Patel, and I'm here with Rubain Dorancy. You touched upon something that was really, really good, made a lot of sense to me, and I want to elaborate on that, talking about the achievement gap. And we know that it exists. How realistic, though, is it for us to say that we could eliminate this or even reduce it? What do you think really needs to be done?
I think it starts with commitment. I think it starts with this focus on equity. Whether you're in Buffalo, Rochester, Yonkers, literally most school districts that have young men of color are typically doing worse. Recently, Attorney General Eric Holder, sent out letters to some school districts that were engaging in discriminatory practices in terms of even suspending young men. So there are a lot of factors that contribute to the achievement gap. Black boys and Latino boys are more likely to be suspended. Black boys and Latino boys are more likely to be referred to special ed even before preventive services and early interventions are not even offered. Black and Latino boys are typically reprimanded for longer time.
It's like a little more harsh. Like they're almost intentionally picked on. Or you're targeted straight off the bat just because, and like we talked about in our previous interview, stop and frisk.
Right.
You are a target just for being a young black male. That's the only crime you committed.
Right.
It's just being born a black male or a black Latino male. you have a more likelihood to be targeted.
So if we can create policies that, one, support professional development for teachers, for school leaders, and we can adopt an equity-based framework where we are committed to that, and we also work with the young people by investing in them. Certainly that there are behaviors that are unacceptable that require reprimand, that requires suspension, and sometimes even, unfortunately, even more egregious consequences like expulsion. However, to the extent that we can invest in our young people, teach them the life skills that they need, expose them to alternative opportunities, and create parallel support systems in other social service agencies, like community, youth and community development, then what you are now doing is creating almost like a web or a cocoon of sort to support and to protect and insulate the young people from as many negative, harmful factors. But I think it really starts with understanding that there is, and unfortunately to say this, but there's a great book, and I don't want to go into a policy, but there's a great book by Michelle Alexander called The New Jim Crow. And you sort of have to understand the policies of like mass incarceration. You sort of have to think about the relationship between the public school system and some of the policies around incarceration. When you think about in many states, for example, 3rd and 4th grade reading scores are used to predict the number of beds that would be built for prisons. It tells you that there are things that we can do for our sons in early childhood and in elementary schools to prevent these really, harmful outcomes. And that's why it's really exciting to have in New York City a mayor who is passionately committed to early childhood, because if you can teach young people the social skills and the literacy skills and the computational skills, by the time they're in the 3rd and 4th grade, you are really changing the trajectory of their lives. But when you have young people moving through the grades, and by the time a young boy is in the 4th and 5th grade, if he's not made a commitment to stay in school, there's a great likelihood that he's going to drop out. And so those are things that adults in a child's life can do to help shape and to increase his connection to school. So there's a lot of things that we can do.
Absolutely. How do we get in contact with you, Rubain? You've got a great website, you have Facebook. Share all that information.
Our website, our campaign's website is www.dorancy4senate.com. And that's really the best way, because with that you can sign up. If you want to get more campaign information, you can sign up to become a volunteer. And because we have an extremely interactive and transparent campaign, we want folks to know what I'm running on. Now, certainly education is critical, but we support equality, and by that I'm talking about women's equality. A lot of things that we take for granted are still sort of being debated now, even at the state level. As a child of immigrants, I support the New York State DREAM Act, which would allow for immigrants or people who are undocumented to be able to get financial aid to go to college if they are so deserving. So if academically these are high achieving students, what we want to do is give them access to go to college. That's an investment in human capital, many of whom end up majoring in science and technology, the very things that our city and that our country need. So, this is more than, some former teacher running. This is really about thinking about policy in a way that can really impact the 20th senatorial district and can really serve as a laboratory to teach people just how we can do amazing things, big things in Brooklyn. So I'm really excited by the campaign. This is more than a run for me. This is really a learning experience, but also an opportunity to teach our constituents about exactly what lawmakers do. It's more than just showing up at events and speaking and leaving. This is really about thoughtful policy making and fighting for resources, fighting for our budget, our fair share, to change the lives of people from Sunset Park straight through Brownsville, going through, Prospect Heights and Crown Heights and Park Slope. It's an amazing experience, and I'm thrilled to have the chance to be part of it.
And that's a big zone to cover because
Right.
you've got, even like you said, ethnically, financially.
Right.
Do you ever think you'll have to sit down and even within your district kind of map out how you would target each one of those other little subsections? Because certain things that apply to Sunset Park may not apply to Brownsville.
Oh, right. So that's a really great question. So that really is more on the operations side, the campaign operation. But you're absolutely right. It's really looking at the district. It's a vast district, and there are specific community issues. So we use a lot of data to really study up on what are the things that are of concern to the different people in the community based on demographics, but also based on just where they're living. So we were just recently last year dealing with this scourge of like violence in Brownsville. So certainly we want to again partner with the police department, the police precinct, to come up with thoughtful constitutional strategies to reduce crime. In Crown Heights, we're dealing with knockout, where young teens were randomly going up to adults, primarily people of the Hasidim community, and just knocking them out. In Park Slope, there have other issues, but there are still things that bind everyone. Everyone wants fairness. Everyone wants equality. Everyone wants to be able to decide the types of relationships that they're going to be in. Everyone wants to be able to afford to live in Brooklyn, and everyone wants their children to go to schools that will prepare them to be college and career and citizenship ready. So there are things that unite us, even within the diversity.
That is great, Ruben. We're out of time, but we definitely are going to have you back again. I promise. Looking forward to it. Rubain Dorancy, everybody, make sure you check out DorancyForSenate.org.
.com.
DorancyForSenate.com. I'm your host, Lydia Patel. We're out of time, but we'll definitely be back again, same time, same place next week. You're watching Beyond Focus TV. Thank you for watching. Beyond Focus TV show wants and needs your feedback. Did we blunder? Please let us know so we can improve. Was the show helpful to you? Drop us a note so we can share the success with our staff members. Is there something you think we could do better? We welcome new ideas and new approaches to old ideas. Do you have a great suggestion? Let us know and we'll work on it. If you would like to share your comments anonymously, please send us an email at info@beyondfocusmedia.com. If you want to get in touch with the executive producer directly, send him an email at gene@beyondfocusmedia.com. We really look forward to hearing from you.